Hi, this is Mark with Circle of the Dark Mother. Today, I want to talk about ritual tools and Lilith. Basically, what ritual tools I use and how I use them. In the picture on the screen, you can see one of my altars. It is my main Lilith altar facing the east and is for Lilith and Lilith the Younger. And let's talk a little bit about ritual tools. So ritual tools, what are they? So they're items that are usually housed on your altar and used during rituals or magic as representations for various spiritual counterparts. Now, I use mine from a kabbalistic standpoint because that's how I work and that's how I learned. If you have a different tradition, use what works for you. Don't go changing it because I'm giving you new information. Now, you can incorporate some of this, you can use it, you can ignore it, but it is knowledge about how I work with the ritual tools, at least. I currently have 4 altars. There's a second one now being shown. This is in the south, and it's to Lilith 2 or Ardat Lily, which if you watch the video on aspects of Lilith, you'll understand more about what that means. I did want to say that I've been collecting items and statues and such for over 20 years. So don't feel like you have to have expensive materials, especially starting out. And I say this all the time because people think they have to get the best. And I'll tell you, I started out with some pretty simple stuff until I learned what I was doing. And you don't need 4 altars. I have 4 because I have a whole room dedicated to Lilith. I do teaching, I do group rituals, and of course, I've been doing this a long time. So again, you don't need to have 4, 1 altar is enough. And I think, as I said in another video, if you can't have an open displayed altar, maybe you live with someone, maybe you don't have room, something you can do is get a box, like a wood box or something, and put your tools inside it when not using it, and then pull it out and turn it into a temporary altar. That's also good if you do a small one that you can travel with. I'll be equating each ritual item with an aspect of Lilith. And if you want more information, again, there is a video on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, that discusses aspects. And I also go into a great deal in my book, Embodying Lilith, a Gnostic Kabbalah of Lilith. That one has a bunch of aspects, one for each sphere on the Tree of Life and Tree of Shadows. So the first ritual item is a pentacle or pentagram. Now, this is a disc-shaped object, usually flat, but circular. And it may or may not have a 5-pointed star on it. Some of mine do, some of mine don't. Some of mine are giant pieces of agate. Some of them are wood, some of them are metal, some have the pentacle, some do not. So it can be anything really, as long as it has that basic circular shape, whatever, again, you're more comfortable with. The associations for the pentacle are north, earth, severity, which is restriction. And now I want to be careful. Restriction and severity in English and in Western culture sound like something bad. And of course, taken too far, it is bad. But in this connotation, it's pointed, it's very specific. So this restriction is when you use the pentacle, you are restricting to something specific you want done. Like, let's say you want a particular job, you want a particular person. You would use a merciful item if you wanted something more broad, like I want to have a relationship, or I want a new job, but I have no idea what I want. And that's the difference between severity and mercy. Severity is pointed, directional. Mercy is open-ended. The pentacle also is about magic. It also is associated with the Archangel Uriel. And I do have a video on why I work with archangels and why it's okay to work with them with Lilith. The bottom line being that she is mother. She is the creator of or the mother of all living things, spiritual and physical. And that means that she controls the angels just as well as she controls demons. So as long as they're called subsidiary to her, it works. And again, there's a video that explains it. The specific aspect of Lilith is Ne'ama, which means pleasant. And she was a living person, at least according to different texts. She's the sister of Tubal-Cain. She's a descendant of Cain. In some texts, she's the wife of Noah. And so she was physically incarnate. She's said to be very beautiful. And she is associated with the North and with the Pentacle. I use these associations and the Pentacle to invoke magic, earthly desires, sex and love, and focused energy, very focused. And when I say I focus on these things, I invoke not just for me, I also do work for other people, people that I've been asked to do work for. And so I will use Neama, the North, the Earth, the Pentacle for that kind of work. The next one is the wand. The wand is basically a long pointed object used to focus energy. The wand can be a tree branch made of wood, made of crystal, or any other material, except usually iron because it's said to block energy. Most of my wands are crystal, but I do have 2 that are wood. I have more than 4 wands. I have old ones I do not use anymore, but I did at one point that I've replaced. Most of mine are crystal, but I do have 2 wood ones now. The associations with the wand is south, fire, mercy, meaning that it's directioned, but it's directioned in a beam, not, or more of like a light instead of a very fine point. It's for protection, the Archangel Michael. The aspect of Lilith is Ardat Lili or Lilitu, which are both Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian names that are associated with Lilith. This I use to invoke protection, unhindered energy, and more broad requests. So if I don't know what I'm shooting for, I often use a wand to open my sphere. If I know very specifically, I'll use my athame or my knife. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes and why. The next one is the cup or chalice. It's, as it's named, it's a vessel that can hold liquid. The cup can be made of any material. There is a type of cup which is called the Kapala, which is a Buddhist skull cup. It's basically the skull cap of a Buddhist monk that was donated. It's usually like covered with either some kind of metal in the inside or some kind of shellac, so it, liquid isn't going into the skull itself. And a lot of times it's carved. But you can use any kind of cup. It can be glass, it can be stone, it can be metal, it can be a Kabbalah. Here are the associations with the cup. West, which is the gateway of death. Water, mercy again. Prophecy and dreaming. The Archangel Gabriel. The aspect of Lilith is as Lilith or Agrat Bat Malat, and used to invoke prophecy, dreaming, mysteries of death, and mysteries of the mother. This is, even though it's a merciful item, I always consider the West to be a little more harsh. So this mercy is not quite as, it's non-directional. It's sort of open-ended like the wand, but at the same time, it is not, it's going to be a more powerful kind of effect with a zing to it, and a little more advanced. The next item is the knife or athame. It's a bladed object with a handle. Usually a knife has a metallic blade, although I do have crystal. I have a porba, which is a Buddhist 3-sided knife that's very old, and it is crystal. Most of my others, though, are more traditional knives. The associations with this are the East, which is the gateway of life, the element of air, severity or restriction. Think of the knife sort of like a scalpel. It's very directed and very specific what you're trying to do with it. It does do healing. It's the Archangel Raphael that it's associated with. And then the aspect of Lilith is Lilith and Lilith the Younger. It's used to invoke healing, cutting of ties, or binding. Now, I do want to make one comment. There are traditions that swap the knife and the wand for their direction and their element. So some would put the wand here as east and air instead of the knife. Depends on your tradition. I've seen many that do it the way I do it and many that do it the opposite way. I think it's whatever you're comfortable with. Another element that I always have is a crystal ball. And usually it's clear quartz. Most of mine are fairly small, maybe 3 to 5 inches in diameter. On my main altar, I do have one that's about 10 inches in diameter. It's a pretty big crystal. Most of mine are clear crystal, but I do have black, I do have amethyst. Depends on what I'm trying to do. The association is inside because it's spirit space is the element. It is compassion, which is the balance of severity and mercy. So you can use it for either very directed or very wide. It deals with consciousness. The archangel is Hua, which is the archangel of enlightenment. The aspect of Lilith is Noria. She's an enlightened being from the Gnostic texts who encounters Noah. He won't let her on the ark, and so she burns it down and makes him start over. But she really is an enlightened being and sort of the hero of the stories she's in. You can use this to invoke spirit, raising consciousness, or gaining insights. And then you can put other items on your altar, like many different ones. I have my books, I have a pestle, I have a black mirror, I have flowers, I have bones, I have crystals. But other things you probably want on your altar are a statue or image, if you're working with Lilith, then something that invokes your desire energy for Lilith. So either a statue of her, a picture of her, or you can even put like a rock that reminds you of her. For instance, a small black crystal can be very evocative of Lilith. And then candles. You really need to have at least one, but you can put as many as you want. There's probably a point where it's too many and you can burn your house down. So you want to come to some balance. Most of mine have probably 6 candles on it. They're fairly big altars. I do 2 on the smaller altars. They represent light, energy, and give ambiance to the working, because I usually turn all the other lights off, and it's good to have some amount of light. I will tell you, if you have a whole room dedicated and you have multiple candles on every altar, and I have other altars besides Lilith, a couple others, which I'll talk about in later videos. It can get hot, so be prepared that you can generate quite a bit of heat between the candles and the energy you're invoking. Again, I want to say you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can get a very little, small candle. You can print out a picture of Lilith, put a rock on your altar. You can get a twig and a butter knife, and a small disc like a coaster, and a cup, and your altar's pretty good. I would start there, add the crystal ball, and then if you want to build up on those or add other items. So that's what ritual tools look like and how I use them. Thank you for joining and watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful, and talk to you soon.